Good afternoon and welcome to this episode of Hunt's Corner Hunter. This episode will be part 4 of our How to Call Turkey series. And today we're going to talk about calling turkeys and some of the different kinds of calls that you can use, as well as some of the different kinds of calls you can use to locate turkeys. Let's start off with the understanding that turkeys make a lot of different kinds of sounds, especially in the fall. If you're talking about young turkeys, where they make a lot of whistles and kiki runs and little sounds like that. And those are useful if you do any fall hunting. In my case, in my home state of Georgia, we don't have fall hunting, so we're not going to worry about those. We're only going to focus on the calls that you need to attract a gobbler to you in the spring. There are 4 calls that you will primarily use in the spring: the yelp, the cluck, the purr, and the cackle. And we will talk about each one of those, and I will demonstrate how to make those calls. Primarily, I will demonstrate it with my mouth diaphragm, but as we move into some of the other types of calls, we'll look at them on different types of calls and how you can do them. The most basic call that you need to know for hunting gobblers in the spring is the yelp. And there are different kinds of yelps, but in the end, yelping is yelping, and you need to know how to make a yelp. If you learn to do nothing else, learn to yelp, because that's the foundation of all the calling that you're going to do. Yelps consist of about 4 or more, could be as many as 6, 7, or even 20 2-note calls. And this is a turkey saying, "Here I am." There are different kinds of yelps. You have little soft tree yelps that the turkey does when they're still in the tree. And this might be 2 to 3 notes, and they'll be very soft. You have plain yelps that turkeys use all throughout the day. You have lost yelps, which is a lot of continuous yelping that turkeys use when they get separated from their flock. In the end, a gobbler who's interested in girls, he doesn't care if it's a lost turkey or a regular turkey in the tree. He doesn't care. He's just interested in the girl. So learn to do a yelp, and that will serve you more than anything else. Now, a yelp is going to sound something like this. Now that's really about all there is to yelping. Now, if you hunt with a lot of different people who use a lot of different kinds of calls, you'll find an immense amount of variation in how they yelp. Some of them yelp loud, some are more soft, some are coarse and raspy, some are not. The tone will change, the pitch will change. But the one thing that doesn't change in yelping is the rhythm. And what you're trying to go for is that chop, 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 chop sound. So whether it sounds like this, or this. Notice that the timing doesn't vary. The rhythm doesn't vary. It's the same rhythm. Learn that rhythm, that chop, 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 chop sound. If you can learn to do that on any of these kind of calls that I've got out in front of me, you can turkey hunt. We tend to put far too much emphasis on calling in turkey hunting. Lovett Williams said turkey calling was about 20% of turkey hunting. Tom Kelly would say probably 25%. Ben Lee, who made calls, might say 30%. In the end, there are other more important aspects of turkey hunting than just calling. And yet, that is probably where 95% of the focus is put on. I would say learn to do a basic yelp on one of these instruments down here, fix that rhythm and that pattern in your brain, and then forget about it. Don't worry about trying to be fancy with this. You don't need to be. Learn to do basic yelping and you'll be fine. It's very simple. That's it. That's all you need to know. The next call that you might want to have in your repertoire is a cluck. And a cluck is a simple, soft, one-note call that turkeys use to kind of communicate at short range. Where if you see a flock of turkeys going through the woods or across the field and you listen, you'll hear them do little soft single-note clucks to each other. They kind of use them to keep up with who's where. They space themselves with it. And a cluck sounds something like this. And that's it. Sometimes I will use clucking like if maybe I suspect there's a bird close by. He's coming in, but he's coming in quiet. Sometimes if you cluck, he may cluck back at you, let you know how close he is or which direction he is. If I'm trying to coax a flock of turkeys towards me, for example, if there's a gobbler with hens and I'm trying to get the whole flock to come towards me, I might do some clucking to try to lure him in. The next call that I'm going to use, and probably most of the time I'm going to use this in conjunction with my clucks, is purring. And again, these are sometimes the little soft purrs that turkeys make as they feed through the woods. You'll hear a flock of turkeys cluck and do some soft purring, and it sounds like this. A lot of times you're sitting on the edge of a field, there's a gobbler out there with a flock of hens, the hens are feeding, you're calling, and every time you call or every time you yelp, the gobbler just stands out there in the middle of the field and struts and looks real pretty. He's not coming any closer. He's stuck out there 100 yards away. You can't shoot him. What can you do? Well, sometimes you can purr and cluck and maybe soft yelp at the flock of hens and get them to come, and maybe he'll come along with them. So you may sit here and do this. Sometimes that can lure the flock in and they'll bring that gobbler along with them. That's purring and that's clucking. The final call that I use is the cackle. And turkeys will primarily cackle at two occasions. When they fly up or fly down from a tree, you'll hear a cackle. And sometimes if turkeys get really excited or aggravated or angry, they may start cackling at each other. So if I'm calling a gobbler first thing in the morning and I want to sound like a hen flying out of a tree, I may do some tree yelps and I may go into some plain yelps, and then when I get ready to simulate that hen flying down, I'll cackle. The other time is sometimes if you're out traveling trying to get a gobbler to sound off and let you know he's in the area, some excited cackling and excited clucking can get his attention. And the cackle sounds something like this. It's really kind of a cluck and yelp run together at a high rate of speed. And sometimes if you're walking along in the middle of the day, you hadn't heard anything, you do that a little bit. Maybe you do it on a box call. Get you a good loud box call. You can trigger a turkey to gobble. And that's the 4 primary calls that I'm going to use. I don't use much beyond that. I might occasionally, once in a blue moon, use a gobble tube to try to sound like a gobble. If I've got a gobbler that's hung up and I just absolutely can't get him to come in, and he's not moving. There's no obstacle between me and him, and an obstacle can be a problem like a fence or a creek or a briar patch that he don't want to walk through. Sometimes a gobble tube can simulate another gobbler, and that triggers jealousy in him, and maybe he'll come on in. Sometimes that works. I don't use this very often, but it's something to have in your bag of tricks. Now, as far as actually calling the turkey, what kind of call to use, as you can see, there's a lot of different kinds of calls. And obviously, I don't carry all of these in the woods with me at once. I'd need a valet or a manservant with a cart behind him to pull all these calls. So I like to carry one or two of each kind and then get really proficient with those handful of calls. As I've mentioned before, I keep a diaphragm call on me at all times. Even if I'm deer hunting, I keep a turkey call on me. Sometimes it's just good to have something like that. Maybe you need to calm down a deer or something. Anyway, I always have one of these handy. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about how to use a mouth diaphragm. This is probably, it's not the hardest to learn to use, but it's on up there. And if you're a beginner, this is probably not where you want to start. Most diaphragms are going to have anywhere from 1 to 3 of these reeds, these little latex reeds fitted into the mouthpiece. Read the directions for your particular call. A lot of them will have these cuts. The cuts usually orient to the top of your mouth with this horseshoe piece facing out, and you're going to stick it in your mouth, push up with your tongue towards the roof of your mouth, and then huff air across to the call. It sounds easy. It's incredibly hard to learn to do. Get one, practice. If you've never used one, something like the Primo Sonic Dome that has that dome over the top, it's a little bit easier to learn to use. Half of using a mouth diaphragm is finding one that fits your particular palate. So if it doesn't work the first time, don't get frustrated. The advantage to using a mouth diaphragm is that it's hands-free. You don't have to be manipulating your hand like all these other calls. You can stick it in your mouth and forget about it. Don't choke on it, but you can stick it in your mouth and leave it while you sit there holding the gun. You can get soft with them. Get loud. Any minute now, a turkey's gonna come walking into my neighborhood. And the other advantage to a mouth diaphragm is they're not affected by weather. A lot of these calls, especially the ones made out of wood, if it's raining, you're not going to be able to use them. If they get wet, the call is dampened. If you are a beginning turkey hunter and you don't have anybody to teach you how to call turkeys, or you don't have a mentor, I highly recommend getting this. This is push button call. These are fairly easy calls to use. They consist of a box, usually made out of wood or plastic. You've got a little plunger here that moves a wood slate over a wood striker, and there's a rubber band to pull it back into place. You have to chalk them like you do a box call, but I recommend these as a good starting point. You can yelp. You just take a little plunger, makes a great yelp. You can cluck. You can kind of purr on them. I don't like that purr, but that you could do a purr with it. And I would start with something like this. Now, a lot of people say, well, these are for newbies. These are just for kids. I called up my first turkey when I was 20 years old by myself with a call just like this. And mine was made out of plastic. It works. So don't be embarrassed to start with this. You can find more videos about how to use them online. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on using all these, but I would start with something like this if you don't know what you're doing. The next call that I'm going to keep is I'm going to keep a slate call in my vest. Now, slates come in two parts. You got the slate and the striker. And as you can see, I've got a box full of strikers here. And they come in all different kinds of woods. I've got hickory, I've got cherry, persimmon, laminate, oak, walnut, all different kinds of woods. They'll make different sounds and different variations. Find something you like, find something that works, and stick with it. You'll also get a lot of these surfaces made out of different materials. Slate, petrified wood, glass or crystal, and metals like aluminum and even copper. The nice thing about these aluminum ones is an aluminum slate call with a plastic or good wood striker will work on a rainy day, whereas most of these other ones don't. I use a slate call primarily to do my clucks and my purrs. In fact, this does the best purrs, I think, of any call out there. Does good clucks. You can make really soft calls with this. It makes yelps, it makes good yelps. That's the slate call. Again, they make all different kinds. This one's made out of petrified wood. You can change up your striker, get different sounds. Experiment, find out what you like. They all work. You just try different things till you find something that you like. Some of these other kinds of calls, you got scratch box calls, like this Tom Gaskin turkey call. I don't use this one very much, but it's a great turkey call. You've got a little striker that you fit in the palm of your hand between the meat of your thumb and your middle finger, and then you've got the call itself, and you just kind of that's a good call. Makes good clucks, good yelps. Sometimes I'll throw this one in my vest. These are good if you've got a call shy bird that's already heard all different kinds of calls. Sometimes one of those kind of get him going, and they come in different sizes. You've got long skinny ones like that. You've got some like this. This is a scratch box. I've called turkeys up with them and killed them with that. You've got tube calls, which this one's in bad shape, so I'm not going to mess with it, but these you blow across, make little sounds. I've got a wing bone. I don't use it very often. This is made from cane and a bone from a turkey's wing. And people who use these, they swear by them and they make great sounds. I've never learned to yelp on one, but I can cluck on one fairly decent. You have to kind of kiss it and huff. That's one kind. One thing that you will always see me carry in my vest is a box call. And as you can see, I've got all different kinds of box calls here in different sides, whether they're one-sided or two-sided, different kinds of woods, different lengths. But I will always use a box call. I always have them, and I like them. They're easy to use with a little practice. You can get a lot of different sounds out of a box. So take something like this. Pick out just one of these that I like. So you get something like this Lynch World Champion here. It's a good call. You can yelp on it. You can cluck. You can do a little bit of purring. It does really good cackles. This is an old Lynch. That's a good one. This is a Sweetwater call. Different wood, so you get a little bit different sound. That was a little more raspy. They come out of all different kinds of woods. This one's made out of ball cypress by the late Olin Humphrey. A little bit softer, a little more clear, not as raspy. And I've got some, this one's made out of wormy chestnut. This is another cypress one. This is a cypress and purple heart. You get them made out of cedar. That's a cedar one. One of my favorites is this one made out of heart pine. This is another Olin Humphreys one. I use this one more than I probably use any other one. You get little small ones like this. You get some, like this is a single sided one made out of cherry. And this is a walnut and purple heart. This is a Primos Little Heartbreaker. I use all of these. You don't have to buy this many. I just have a lot because I like turkey calls and I like to try different kinds. Buy you a good one, learn to use it, and it'll carry you a long ways. That is most of the calls that we're going to use to make turkey sounds. You also will need some locator calls. When you start off first thing in the morning and you hear those gobbles on the roost, they don't always gobble on command. You may go out there one day and be waiting at daylight and you don't hear anything, so you need to shock gobble or trigger that turkey into giving its position away. You got to make him gobble. Early in the morning, owl tube is the way to go. Learn to do a simple barred owl call. This is a Palmer's hoot tube. I've been carrying this one a long time. This one's loud. This will have every turkey on the property gobbling sometimes. When you do this, a lot of times the real owls get fired up and amped to you, and once they do, you just shut up and let them do it. They're better at it, and they'll save you the trouble. On up in the day when you don't hear so many owls, I'll usually go to a crow call. A lot of times you can trigger real crows and they'll trigger the turkey, or he may answer your crow call. You don't have to do that many notes, but do enough to get his attention and then shut up and listen. And that's most of the calls that I'm going to use. I'm going to carry in my vest, I carry my crow call, carry my owl call. I usually carry one slate, a couple of diaphragms, and one, maybe two boxes. Most of the time I'm just going to pick out one box and carry it. In my truck, I'm going to keep one of these aluminum calls in case it's raining. And I always carry a couple of extra diaphragms because they will tear up on you. Carry you a little bit of Scotch-Brite to condition the surface on your slate calls, and some chalk, not blackboard chalk, but carpenter's chalk, something that's, you know, designed for turkey calls. And that way you can condition your box call, your push button calls, and your scratch box calls. Again, so much is made about turkey calling, but it's not the thing you need to focus primarily on. You'll go a whole lot farther turkey hunting if you learn woodsmanship and how to figure out what's going on in the woods, learn to read sign. Not to say that turkey calling is not important, because it is, and if you make the wrong sound at the wrong time, you can certainly run a turkey in the other direction. But don't get hung up on trying to be the greatest turkey caller alive, because it's just not worth the effort. I mean, it's nice to be good at it, but it's not what's going to bring home the bacon. You need to learn the basics and then go out there and turkey hunt. You're going to mess up a lot calling turkeys. You are. If you turkey hunt for any amount of time, you're going to make a whole lot of mistakes, but that's okay. That's how you learn. Get you a couple of calls, master yelping, throw in some clucking if you can, learn those calls, and you'll be fine. I hope this episode has been helpful to you. We've come a long way from when we started about a month ago. We're about halfway through this series. Next time we're going to start talking about turkey biology and why turkeys do what they do and how we can use that information to learn to hunt them. If you like this video, hit that like button, leave a comment below. If this has all been helpful to you, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell, and you'll get notified when the next video drops. Until next time, thanks for watching.